some lads who I'd gone to school with were going to these riots, and I was like, oh, like I kind of understand that they don't feel heard, and there's a brief around what, assets being stripped from Teesside historically is like quite a big thing. It's still in the air. And I was also training to be a counsellor, and I was finding it a little bit difficult where I was coming away thinking, oh, am I like this loud, sort of contradictory person? I say, there's one of the things that I say is like class is the great inequaliser, the deal breaker that amplifies every other oppression.
Nell is a psychotherapist and the creator of Class Therapy, a working class project exploring therapy, culture, power, and class consciousness. What began as a zine has grown into a wider platform with an online community and a book in development. Through Class Therapy, Nell looks at how therapy and mental health spaces often reflect middle class norms, and what changes when working class experience, humour, survival, and relational intelligence are taken seriously rather than flattened or misunderstood. In this conversation, we talk about class, barriers, success, and some of the social conditions and political backdrops that shaped the project. It's a grounded discussion about recognition, misrecognition, class consciousness, and why that still matters so much in how people are seen, supported, and understood. How you doing now? You alright? How was that?
I'm
Was that okay?
good. I'm good. I'm fresh out of interviewing people for my book today.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but like, I'm so happy to be here and talk about the project, Jen. So thank
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
for
no, it's great. It's
inviting me.
great to actually get you on.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, because this series is about those from working class and lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
hmm
Um, Normally I always ask, well, what do you currently do? But I've mentioned it there, but we'll just go straight into it. And what
hmm
does working class mean to you?
I think, it's so hard to define. Do you know
Mm.
what? I had a little stab at defining like what were class
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
but I think when I talk to people, so I like have a lot of conversations with people, and they haven't all had like a straight path in
Yeah.
sort of determining what their class is. And I sort of know that a little bit myself. Um, but I think at the heart of it, it's like recognizing in each other that you've had to navigate material deprivation. And by material deprivation, I'm like looking outward here, like we're
Yeah.
zooming out and we're looking like, I always say, like, have to look at through a kaleidoscope to understand class, because to me, if you only concentrate on the economic shard, you miss all the other stuff.
Mm.
And I think that's what class therapy is about. It's looking at all the other stuff. Like, what does it cost in sort of grander terms,
Yeah.
time, space, money, energy, and, what does it cost to be working class? How does it feel to be working class? So I think we really got to like widen this thing, because in a way, we're constrained if it's about wage brackets
Mm.
only, I would argue.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so for me, it's that there's no sort of class policing. I'm sure you're the same, James. There's no like sort of, well, you might personally think it, but there's no like, it is something that is provided through recognition. So like, if you feel this way, then there you go. And I think it's less about an identity
Mm.
as well. I think you're shaped through what's experienced through what you've experienced, but I don't think you can claim
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, that's fine. I think as you said, like the term working class is such a complex, multi-layered thing. And
Yeah.
it does vary from person to person based on their lived experience. Well, based on this series that I'm doing. So yeah,
Mhm.
it does vary a lot. But there are these like common similarities between each of the guests, and there are
There's
certain themes.
echoes. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's echoes of experience. Like you might have had a different life, you might be a different type of person, but
Mm.
there's echoes there, and it's usually how we're treated by like the air. Like I say that the class is soil. So I made
Mm.
this collage to try and explain this idea that the class is the soil. So you grow up in material deprivation,
Mm.
and material deprivation isn't necessarily just about being in poverty.
Yeah.
It's also about being excluded from things. It's also about having opportunities. It might be things like warmth, like having a warm home. Obviously, we're warm
Yeah, yeah.
people, but it might be that you've had this precarity where you've lurched from crisis to crisis all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
like your family have. Um, there's a precarity mix in the
Mm.
soil, and then the air around it is reflecting this dominant sort of model of almost like a middle class norm of like how you should be.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, like, reflecting things in a distorted way back to you as somebody who's working class. And that's really hard to navigate. And I
Mm.
think that's where the echoes come from because
Yeah, yeah.
we've all had our brush up against those
Yeah.
distorted mirrors.
Is that how class therapy came about? Could you tell us a little bit about that? And yeah,
Yeah.
how did that become?
So, so there was a number of things happening at the time. One was it was the riots, the riots that happened in Middlesbrough, which is close to where I live. Like Middlesbrough's the biggest town of near where I live. I'm in
Yeah.
Teesside. And like some lads who I'd gone to school with were going to these riots, and I was like, oh, like I kind of understand that they don't feel heard, and there's a
Mm.
grief around what assets being stripped from Teesside historically is like quite a big thing. It's still in the air, the
Yeah, yeah,
Thatcher
yeah.
years echo like a ghost.
Mm.
And I understand that. And I understand that modern life is isolating and there's more individualism there. But I didn't understand why we were punching on our neighbours around that. I
Mm.
thought, well, obviously, there's higher there's higher powers, you're punching at somebody who's having the same experience as you. So that was
Yeah.
happening. And I was also training to be a counsellor, and I was finding it a little bit difficult where I was coming away thinking, oh, am I like this loud, sort of contradictory person who
Yeah.
doesn't agree with these frameworks necessarily? It didn't really reflect the experiences that I had, like growing up or even now. Um, and one of those things in particular was using humour.
Yeah.
So if you're like in therapy, I'll give you a little behind the scenes thing about therapy. So if you're like a counsellor and and a client cracks a joke, they're supposed to like maybe note it down on a clipboard and like question marks like what's this person hiding. Whereas I thought, no,
Okay.
actually, I could do a stand-up routine about some of the things I've been through, and
Yeah.
it's a way to connect almost, and like, why are we
Mm.
pathologizing that? So that's how it started. I created a zine around humor, and like I was trying to be like, humor's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
it's relational. It's how we connect with
Yeah.
people. It's warm. There's gallows humor there as well, like dark humor. I'm
Mm.
sure you've probably been at a funeral where somebody's cracked a joke, and it's like a pressure valve, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that. So I thought, oh, I'll just start writing it. I think it gave people like recognition and they latched onto it.
Mm.
And then I thought, well, there's so many other things that we could explore here. And as I became a bit more prickly in the course and really started to question, like, where are these ideas coming from? And usually the theorists, they would have studied a middle class family, a white family, 2.4 kids
Yeah, yeah.
in America usually. And I thought, oh, there's got to be more here. Like there's
Mm.
more of there's surely there's more writing. And I looked and there wasn't really that much. So I thought, yeah, I'm gonna do this. So that's how it started, and then it's just escalated.
Okay.
Yeah.
S- So yeah, I mentioned in the intro, it's about well, you just mentioned it there. It's therapy is like aimed towards like, is it the middle classes? Would you say that there does need to be like what you're doing therapy for the working classes? Do you feel like that's a space that doesn't really get a look in for the working class?
Absolutely, because it's in the air, right? So, like, we switch on the news and we'll hear that there's a huge mental health crisis and
Mm.
there's a huge waiting list for the NHS. And who are usually on those waiting lists for NHS? Working class people. It's people who
Mm.
can't afford therapy.
Yeah.
Some therapy is very, very expensive. Sometimes for working class people, they see, and this is something I'm exploring at the moment, so I'm not fully formed on it, but I know it happens, that we see sort of almost like looking inwards at what's going on
Yeah.
as like a luxury or something that's, something that's a bit self-indulgent.
Mm.
And that's really interesting as to why that happens. But also, if you're paying for therapy and you have to spend your time explaining to the
Mm.
therapist things about benefits, things about, you know, not having choice, things about your family being complicated. Maybe you had like a fake nana down the street who looked after you
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
you played out and your mum and dad weren't even there. Maybe
Yeah.
you were left alone a lot while they're at the pub, or you had stepdads and you've got someone who's your cousin but you're not blood related or even
Yeah.
brothers and sisters. If you're the spending, that's on their clock. That's their responsibility because they hold the power and they should educate themselves around that. So there's definitely a case for it. And, class is such a wide ranging thing. It really narrows people's choices, and that's got a psychological impact, no doubt about it. And I
Mm.
think the more people come to me and tell me these things or tell me that they've actually been harmed in therapy or it's just they just haven't got what they needed and actually it's better talking to your mate down the pub to make more sense. That's saying that there's something in the industry that needs to change.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say actually, because whenever there's like various podcasts that I listen to, and there's various adverts that I see, it's like I don't know if you heard, is it called Better Help? Or
Yeah.
there's these things that you always hear now, and it's like it feels like there's that model of, is it in America where everyone's getting therapy? It's kind of become standard
Mhm.
practice. And then now you're hearing like, oh yeah, if you want to talk about it. But again, there's that cost factor to it. And like you just said, like I think people from working class backgrounds, they don't have the luxury of money to be able to seek therapy and stuff like that. And do you feel like, I'm not quite sure where I'm getting with this question, but I feel like sometimes I could be just overgeneralizing here, but with a lot of those from working class backgrounds, they probably do hold in a lot of their feelings and not tend to kind of discuss it. Is that something you would agree with? And do you think the model of paying for therapy is something that people should kind of be a bit wary of?
Yeah, like I don't think that's an overgeneralization. I think that's like a shared experience, and I think it might be gendered as well. I would
Yeah.
say that maybe that's like, for masculine people that might be difficult.
Mm.
Um, in terms of that, I think that when we say about cost, I think there's also a cost of like, I think working class people were like budgeting in a way that is also not just about money, but like time, effort, after cost, stability. So we're like budgeting all these different things. We're
Mm.
budgeting our own stability. And then sometimes we think, oh, that's going to send me off kilter.
Yeah.
If I go to this, I'm going to have to drag up all these things that have happened to
Mm.
somebody who might not understand me. And that's really difficult. But also at the same time, we live in a culture where therapy language is more common now and
Yeah.
people use that. People are looking towards things like TikTok, ChatGTP, Instagram Reels
Mm.
in order to get that recognition because the waiting lists for the NHS are huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then even when they get onto that, like, chance of getting therapy, it was probably CBT, and I've got a and I'll tell you one thing,
Yeah.
I've got a problem with CBT because it is very much about reframing your own mind, and it's sort of there's this idea that you've got a cognitive distortion, but your material reality isn't a cognitive distortion, it's
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
right? So I've had people talk to me about, oh, my therapist has said that, I've talked to them about bill paying and they've told me it's a scarcity mindset.
Mm.
And that's because money is scarce.
Yeah.
Money is
Yeah. Yeah.
scarce at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
end of the month. That is a really legitimate thing that somebody's coming across. It isn't about your mindset. You can't manifest your way out of
Mm.
homelessness. It
Yeah.
seems ridiculous that people would think that way in some ways, because it's like a reality for a lot of people. And it's always like the way that therapy is now, and just wellness culture in general, it's
Yeah.
almost like there's a wound that's manufactured. So, like,
Mm.
we'll see a lot of stuff about people being broke. I don't think anyone's broken. You might have gone through things that felt like they were going to break you,
Yeah.
but we're like tough cookies, the working class. We've had to be to survive things, and it's almost like there's this manufactured wound there of saying you're not enough, just like in the beauty industry. Beauty
Mm.
industry
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same. And that's for both, all genders, whether you're
Yeah.
masculine presenting or feminine presenting, there's always something there that's like you could do better. And now it's the same with mental health. And things like BetterHelp, they're there to be like sort of almost normalize it at the same
Mm. Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But therapy isn't the only way to heal.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things that people can do.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say actually, because you mentioned social media aspect, people kind of turn to the platforms, and in one way, it is a good thing, but also there's this element of like they might be getting wrong kind of advice and stuff like. And like for instance, that's how I came across your class therapy on Instagram,
Oh.
and yeah, it was just really interesting because you were coming at from a different point of view, like working class therapy for
Mm.
those from working class backgrounds. Um, Yeah, so in terms of some of the information that gets put out there,
Mhm.
how do you feel like should there be kind of some kind of regulation or something in place because of the information that they're getting?
Yeah, so, like, counselling, therapy isn't regulated, so anybody could do an online course. You don't even need to do an online course, to be honest.
Mm,
You could go and call yourself, like, a therapist, you could go call yourself a coach.
yeah.
There's difficulties around that because while I don't wanna sound elitist, you've got to learn stuff. There's a huge amount of, like, personal reflection, like, the
Mm,
journey that we've got to go on. We've got to have personal therapy. We've got to talk to a supervisor. We've got to reflect on our own things. That's really, really important. Therapists need to be coming into a place where they've examined their own misgivings and their own wounds. And that's a constant process and it does your head in. I can tell you for a fact, right? I think a lot of people who want to shortcut it are almost out there to maybe monetize
yeah, yeah,
people's suffering, and I worry about that. I really do. And in fact, a lot of class therapy stuff is taking the piss out of that because,
yeah,
for somebody to charge you a course, that is manufacturing a wound, right? It's
yeah,
saying, oh,
yeah,
10 reasons, somebody doing a TikTok dance, 10 reasons why you're broken, and you click my link and, you can
yeah,
corner this course for 500 quid. And that's putting people in debt as well, and then you're
yeah,
more miserable or more anxious or more like, "What is going on?" And that's really difficult. The therapy's got to be accessible, and at its heart, good therapy is simply about listening
mm,
and opening up space for somebody else, and we talk about this thing called congruence, which is just like showing up. You are who you are.
yeah,
I am who I say I am. This is who you're gonna get. and also about something called unconditional positive regard, which is about, not judging people, not thinking, oh, you've come from this dysfunctional family, therefore you are dysfunctional yourself. That's not how it works. A lot of people gain like survival intelligence from this.
Yeah. What has kind of been the overall feelings towards your class therapy?
Really good, like overwhelmingly positive in a way that like has sometimes made me a bit wobbly and a bit
Mm.
feel like I've got a lot of responsibility to hold. Um, there isn't that much out there. If there is stuff out there that's class conscious, it's probably more aligned with politics, or it might be aligned with sort of liberation theory, which might not be as accessible. Like, I've had to make sure that my language is like really accessible for people.
Yeah,
I've just
yeah, yeah.
posted today about castles in the sky. Ian Van Dahl, the Ian Van Dahl song, because I was like, yeah, that's
Oh,
about power.
yeah, yeah.
Why do they build castles in the sky?
Yeah,
So it's about tuning into that sort of like remember who you are outside
yeah,
of the phone, and remember the experiences you had, and looking at working class life in a realistic way, like
mm.
giving accurate mirrors for people, instead of these weird distorted ones. So overwhelmingly, people in the comments are like, I feel seen, I feel heard, like nobody's said this in this way to me before, which is great that I can offer that. That feels like a service. That feels like you're in service to
Yeah, yeah,
others. Um, there's been a few Marxists that have had a problem with what I've said
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's not academic enough. But I quite like being on the outside and being a bit
yeah,
of a
yeah,
prick about it. Um, because that satisfies something
yeah,
in me. But yeah, so yeah, it's been overwhelmingly positive,
yeah.
which is great.
No, I was going to say actually as well, because social media is accessible for everyone now.
Mhm.
In terms of age range, is it a very quite dynamic range of? Is the demographic quite broad?
I don't know, because I think my frame of reference is a millennial frame of reference where I'll just
Yeah,
like drop in quite niche quotes, and
yeah,
like that's part of the creativity for me, is like thinking, oh yeah, remember this or
yeah, yeah,
remember that, and that's a lot of the graphics are based upon that. But yeah, I think so. I think, God, I tell you what, when it's somebody who's older and they've said I've been all through my life, I've
mm.
never had that. I've blamed myself. We tend to like blame ourselves.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
a lot of the things I'm saying here, it is in theory. So it's not like I'm making this up, or I'm going, oh, look at these people, this is how they feel. Like, people have
yeah,
written about this in the past. Mark Fisher is a huge influence. He's written about it. There is Marxist theory about this exact thing. There's political
yeah,
theory, there's sociology, there's philosophy in there. So the age ranges, I think it appeals to lots of different age ranges. I don't know the Gen Z lingo that well.
yeah,
So I don't know. Like, they'll probably think I'm like someone who's really uncool, but that's part and package of things.
yeah,
But yeah, it does seem to do that. As for kids, I don't know. Like, I'm an ex nursery nurse, and I love children, but I do like I prefer working with adults.
yeah,
But there
yeah,
could definitely be like a children's arm of like class aware therapy.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Because
But I
that's something that
think it
I've.
turns that all over. A lot of community work is class aware. I'm not
Yeah,
reinventing the wheel,
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's loads of unsung people who are doing community work all over
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
country, but it just doesn't get recognised.
yeah.
So,
Um, yeah, because you've been gaining a lot of traction with your social media and stuff like that.
mhm.
Um, have you found it's becoming like, because you in the intro we talk about that you've got this book in development. How have you found that quite difficult, or how have you found that when you've been approached? Okay, we've got this book.
Like, I thought it
potentially
was a
happening.
scam at
Yeah.
first. I was in London. I was taking my son down to see, like, the Minecraft experience. I was in London, so I couldn't talk to him. He was only, like, 8, so I
Yeah.
couldn't talk to him and go, "Oh, what's this?" I've screenshot it and sent it to my mum, and I was like, "I don't like, this is a scam, isn't it?" Because they just approached me in my DMs and was
Mm.
like, "This is really good stuff. We can't there's not much on class at all.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to pitch and put in some sample chapters?" I was like, "Yeah." Never written any, any
Yeah. Yeah.
books or anything before. But obviously I was writing,
Yeah.
and like I'm creative with language and I do try and make it accessible. So there is graft there. But yeah, so I'd knocked out these chapters. I had to go in for like a pitch meeting. That was good. I was so nervous
Mm.
beforehand. But like, she was absolutely great. I think there's like a sort of an understanding, like, this is my world, this
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
world. There was an understanding there, which I feel lucky for. But I think true that's because I'm writing about class. I think
Yeah.
for a lot of working class creatives, this is not the same story at all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and she was absolutely great. And then there was a waiting period while they consulted on it, and then they said good to go. And now I've got this thing to make and these writing to do, But because of the way I approach class therapy, which is the content that's on the page, people comment on it, we talk about it in the DMs. There's a lot of conversations around it. There's a
Mm.
lot of digging into others and to myself in a non-extractive way,
Yeah.
just like, is this like the same for you as it is for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I feel like there's a good like methodology there as well, because it's not like some academics might go and visit a rough town and sit there
Mm.
in the car too nervous to get out,
Yeah.
writing like, oh, so and so did this. But like, I'm there on the ground, talking
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in a way that's like almost like horizontal power,
Yeah.
which feels important.
No,
So
that's good.
hopefully, hopefully it's writing itself, she says.
Well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Because you are, I suppose you are from that background. You have that understanding. So when you come to write it, it's a lot more natural, authentic.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. I was going to say actually, because you went and did that pitch meeting,
Mhm.
how was that as an experience, especially coming from working class and then you're coming down to pitch for a book? How was that as an experience for yourself?
Well, it was online, so that helped. But I did
Yeah.
go to my mum's house because I felt like I just needed an anchor there. But
Yeah.
a lot of this experience has been quite lonely in a way,
Mm.
because nobody else understands the processes behind it necessarily, like friends and family. So it's been quite a lonely journey. No, that's that just sounds sad. It's been quite a lonely journey. So I needed her there as an anchor. I think I wrote loads of notes and I was shaking and I
Yeah.
think I had too many coffees. And then in a very working class way, I think I just talked from the heart
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and sort of really reached into that heart that I think we've all got of it's unfair because there's injustice there, right? At the heart of
Mm.
it, this is injustice. Really reached into my heart and was like, spoke from it and was just like, look, this is what's happening, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, and she was like, oh, I've shown my sister it. We're middle class, and she'd been to Cambridge and stuff like that. And we're middle class, but yeah, there's other stuff in there that seems relevant to us. So I don't even, I think sometimes it's just like being a human, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they went for it and it was good, but I was really nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does it make you feel now? Because I suppose this is the thing. It started out as a zine, then you've gone onto social media. Now you're going to write a book about it. How
Mhm.
does it feel like? Because it's out in the public domain. How does that make you feel from where it started to where it is now?
Oh, that is a question. So, I don't know. I think it's been a slow realization.
Mm.
So there's been times, I think when I spoke to you not so long ago, and I was like, there's cognitive dissonance there, what we would call in the trade cognitive dissonance, which means your reality and what you think aren't matching up. And
Yeah,
that's how it felt, right?
yeah.
So there's part of this, like, there's these different things going on, and I can't quite feel the person that they're saying. And with that, quite often with working class people, find it difficult to take compliments, and I do.
Yeah.
So there was this thing going on, and then with the slow and time, I'm starting to realize it,
Yeah,
depending on what feedback I get. Sometimes it's about feeling legitimate. You
yeah,
feel like a fraud. There's like almost like this imposter syndrome, but I don't even think it is imposter syndrome because it's like almost like turning the blade back in on yourself and saying, "Oh,
mm,
I can't cope with that." It's actually the world isn't set up for
yeah,
people like us in a lot of ways. We've got to work harder, there's more cost. Um, but in lots of ways, I just enjoy it. I'm starting to like enjoy it now. A lot of the themes recently I've been tackling have been quite heavy because
yeah.
we've been looking at stuff with power and injustice, and I've cried. I've cried. I did something on. I say there's one of the things that I say is like class is the great inequalizer, the deal breaker that amplifies our views of oppression. Right. So
Mm,
that means that if you're gay and working class, there's a big cost. Sometimes there's more of a cost.
mm,
If you're black or brown and working class, there's more of a cost. It affects us in
yeah,
different ways. It's almost like you get closer to harm. And I thought, right, okay, I need to I need to hammer this home, but at the same time I need facts. And it was about Grenfell. So I had all these facts about housing and what
yeah.
happens to different people in housing and what are the issues for each different part of where working classness and intersectionality
Mm,
meet. And I
yeah,
cried because it had just been upset about Grenfell, still, and
yeah.
that just not being sorted out. Being upset about how people are treated just because they're othered in some
Yeah,
sort of way is horrendous. So sometimes there's like a real big cost to it personally. It can be hard and heavy, and I'm quite like a light-hearted gal, and I
yeah,
need that. I need, that's also a big part of my personality. So there's been self-care. Have There's had to be self-care involved with it as
mm,
well because sometimes that can feel big. But obviously it's not as big for me writing about it as it is for the people that are going through these situations.
yeah. Um, Going back to what you touched upon earlier,
Mhm.
how class therapy started with your mates going to these riots. With the way the world, well, especially in this country, the way that's going at the minute, do you feel like working class individuals need to be talking more about basically just their working class background? Do you feel like there needs to be more of these kind of discussions in the wider world?
Yeah. I think a lot of working class people feel unheard.
Mm,
I feel like towns have been gutted and stripped from resources that we need and services have been cut. And I feel people are carrying a real grief and sadness around that. And I think sometimes that can be twisted,
yeah.
so that, you can blame people or scapegoat people that, if they're just trying to get on with their lives, you
Mm,
know? And really, that those punches should be aimed up higher at people in power.
yeah.
And but at the heart of it, some of it is about being listened to. Some of it's material resources, right? You've had
Yeah.
material resources taken away and life is tough and cost of living. And it's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wrote
Yeah.
recently about it being £10 for a packet of mints, and that's like
Mm.
something that, you could use and last you. It's like, that's a staple of trying to make ends meet, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Using
Yeah.
something like mints, like for all different types of recipes. So, you've got cost of living, energy bills going. I don't want to sound like a, harbinger of doom here. You've
No.
got
No.
all
No.
these
It's,
different
it's
things going on, right? And then there's the emotional cost. People don't feel heard. And it feels like we're being left
yeah.
in these communities. And as the rich get richer, they also get more distant, right? And
Mm. The
I
gap
think we
widens.
don't feel
Yeah.
cared for.
Mm.
And then the state starts to knuckle down and be a bit more bringing in facial recognition cameras. What does that mean for people who are going to get profiled? It's like tightening. I talk a lot about like tight strings and soft strings,
Yeah.
and sort of tight strings being something like if we had a piece of string between us, and I was pulling on that and you felt bound by my expectations or how I wanted you to be. I work a lot with domestic violence survivors and I'm a survivor myself. That's how it feels. You feel like you can't be yourself.
Mm.
Also, and this is not to flatten anyone's experience of domestic violence, those same tight strings, it can feel that way if you've got a relationship with a DWP.
Mm.
You've
Yeah.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
a child who's disabled and you're ringing them up and the slow. I know this, I'm like talking from personal experience here. You're ringing them up and they're slow to get back to you and they back the responsibility back to you or they make you seem like you're bothering them or
Mm.
anything like that. That is the same level of coercion. And this can be happening all over and it's a tight string. And the person's just left feeling bloody exhausted. That's
Yeah.
part of it as well. People are exhausted. And then on top of it, then you'll have all the wellness stuff that's like, come on, be on this wellness journey, invest all this money in there, get, your teeth done, get your lips done, blah, 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 you know, heal your broken self. And people are just thinking they feel exhausted. So they might invest a
Mm.
load of money in that, or they might go to black market things, get stuff on tick. And then that's just an escalating problem. Whereas, like, people just need care. We need
Yeah.
care from each other. Sometimes I don't even think that power is ever going to give us the care that we need. We need to look after each other.
Yeah.
This is like the working class way.
Yeah. No. It's interesting you're talking about where you've got the care and people need to talk to one another.
Hmm.
But then you hear about, like, for instance, pubs. They were the place where community would get together.
Uh,
But they're kind of closing down. You don't see as
yeah,
many anymore because of how expensive it is.
absolutely.
And do you feel like these are kind of institutions and places that we should really be keeping because it is part of that community where people are
Mhm.
able to talk and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And breweries are bloody greedy.
Mm.
There's pubs around here where I live where the brewers won't do anything. Like somebody will take it over for a couple of weeks and then they're gone because the breweries are giving them too much hassle
Mm.
or rent's really high.
Yeah.
Rent's really high in the high street. And we need those spaces to connect. That's really important. That's what, like, where you feel alive as a working class
Yeah.
person, karaoke night. That's so
Yeah. No.
that
No.
maybe
No.
that's from personal experience, but like, that's like that joy and that freedom from like this like feeling surveilled or feeling like you've got to be this person that you're
Yeah.
not necessarily are. It's like almost like unmasking in that
Yeah.
place. And, you know, for all of us, particularly men, I would say that definitely, you need the pub and you need the pint and you need to be talking to your mates. That
Mm.
is so important, looking out for each other. And we need places to do that. So
Yeah. No.
definitely.
No. Yeah. No. I think. Yeah. It's like, for instance, I was at the pub yesterday, and it's when the price of the pint so
Yeah,
much. You're like, oh bloody hell!
yeah.
Like, it,
£10
yeah, well,
also
yeah, well,
in
yeah. I live in
London.
London, so
Oh, well, there you go, £10.
it is getting to that point. It's like, how can you justify going to the pub? Like, obviously, you don't have to have a pint, but uh, everyone will go for a pint. But then when it's those prices, you just like,
Yeah.
and then where do you go? And then
Mhm.
these places close, and
Football,
yeah,
Oasis, all of this stuff.
yeah,
It's sometimes it just feels like you're a cash cow, right, for other
mm,
for these companies just to get richer and go do their
yeah,
thing, you know.
yeah. But yeah. So yeah, you've got the book in development.
Mhm.
What's kind of next for class therapy? What's the direction? What's your plans?
Good question. It's also like I would say that I did set out that my big dream before class therapy was to write a sitcom, right? So like comedy
Okay.
is like really, really important to me. It's the way that I connect with people. I'm a massive comedy geek. I absolutely love that. That's like aliveness to me, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. There is like some sort of I do use a few characters in class therapy. Like there's Big
Mm.
Shot. You might have seen Big
Yeah.
Shot.
Big Shaz. Yeah,
She's
I've
just
seen that
like
one.
a
Yeah.
yassified Pat Butcher Ball
Yeah.
I created. And there's a character called Richard Blunt, and I would love to do like a sitcom on that. We have, as working class people, we have these conversations with our mates. Like we are living
Mm.
it. We don't, Marx is all very well and good, but we live in that. We live it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore our opinions are valid. I always
Mm.
do when I'm writing, I always listen to lived experience and then I dig inside and think about what's going on for me and how I feel about it. And then I think about my life. And then I think, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's almost like I put it towards my heart, you know, which I sort of see as a bit of a compass. And I go, does that feel right? Does it?
Mm.
Yeah, it does. And then I'll look for theory afterwards
Yeah.
because it's theory's great and it's got a part, but it's theory and lived experience and it's always
Yeah. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
Because
this.
I was going to say, I suppose you don't want it too emotive. You need the theory alongside it. Would you agree
Yes.
with that, or
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
do. You need the theory for like legitimacy and
yeah,
history. And there's almost like, oh yeah, this has been going on for bloody generations.
mm.
And then you need the theory in order to be like, oh yeah, somebody else has said this and they might have done research or they might have just come up with a set of ideas, right? That is useful. But when you put it with lived experience, when you have
Yeah,
and there's no reason why we can't do that. When you've got a kaleidoscope to understand everything and you braid all of those ideas together, you get something that is more of an accurate mirror. I talk a lot about like accurate mirrors. That's what we need for working class people. And somebody, I think, in my comments were like, "Oh, you can't truly know what somebody else is going through."
mm.
And yeah, I think that is the case. Yes, I understand that. But if we get all these fragments together of accuracy, we've got more chance of knowing.
Yeah,
And maybe if they feel seen, maybe they might tell you. If they feel
yeah,
seen, they might tell you more what's going on for them, rather than feeling like having to be educated in order to access
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. No, no, yeah. I think yeah, it makes complete sense what you're talking about there, and I think yeah, I suppose it comes back to people have feeling like they've got that safe space, and over time they're able to actually, okay, I'm ready now to really open
Yeah,
up and talk about my lived experience. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you'd give to
yeah,
like any like
yes,
anyone really, where
yeah,
like they seek your profile out,
yes.
whatever, like yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna separate out into two bits. There's
Yeah.
gonna be a creative bit of advice for people who want to go out and just implement an idea like I did.
Mm.
And then there'll be like a therapeutic bit of advice. So the creative one, and I'm just saying this off the spot, so I'm speaking from my heart here, right? The creative one is if you're if you're noticing that things aren't set out for you as a working class person, and you're coming up to it. To be honest, this is a Marx thing, right? Marx would call this dialectics, right?
Mm.
So this is where we brush up against something. I'm doing this a lot with my hands, but it's literally that. You brush up against something that feels not quite right, doesn't sit
Yeah.
within your heart, right? And that's probably something to do with power or somebody acting like a dodgy bugger. So if that happens, think about it. Think about why. Think about why you're not included. Don't necessarily go inwards and think, oh, it's about me. I'm the bad person. I'm at fault. There's a deficit there. There might be something within the environment that's not quite working.
Yeah.
Use that as a way of honing your own craft, because that's where you can see the gaps are, and just bloody go and do it, because other people need those voices. We need working
Yeah.
class voices more. And you might, if you, there's a quote that I love that's by Audre Lorde, and it's, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. We need different ways
Mm.
of thinking in order to, you know, get our own way with things, and also to be listened to. So that's partly the creative advice. The second one about therapeutic advice is about recognition. Look for pieces. If you're navigating social media and people are very, hard in the camera, or doing a TikTok dance to something, or
Yeah.
really insistent that you had a terrible childhood, sit with that idea of theirs. Don't immediately go, oh, yeah, it was that. And like
Mm.
recalculate your memories to fit their idea. Don't do that. Sit with it. Think about what happened. Think about whether there's love there. Think about, see it in context of your story, your working class story, not some
Mm.
middle class, influencer story. Yours. Does it fit with you? Does it fit within your heart? And if it doesn't, bin it off.
Yeah.
Basically.
No,
Yeah.
that's great advice, because I feel like, yeah, like we touched upon earlier, especially on social media, you're getting all sorts of information thrown at you.
Mm,
Like, it's a constant stream of
absolutely.
bullshit, and just like, what do you take from it? So no, I think, yeah, you've got some great tips there. And if any of our listeners or viewers wanted to kind of get your profile, or follow you
Mhm.
online, where's best to reach you?
So, it was an Instagram mainly project. So it's class.therapy on Instagram. I've got a Substack, which I've neglected for a while, but I will be writing on there. I'll just say we're going to call the podcast Council Pop, because of like
Okay.
tap water,
Yeah.
campaign perspectives and tap water lives, right? So it's going to be called Council Pop. And that, I don't know when that'll be. We've got like our first sort of thing going on in June.
Okay.
The book is going to be handed in autumn this year, and then it'll probably take about a year to be edited. So that'll be probably autumn next year. It'll be available to buy.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, I'll put all the links in the description, so everyone can hopefully follow, and yeah, you'll get more followers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
listening
true.
to your podcast, and
Yeah,
I have to check out the book. So yeah,
yeah.
thanks again now. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, James. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Initial Step. If you resonate with the stories we share and have a similar background you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch, and maybe you'll be featured in an upcoming episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Be sure to check out our previous episodes for more inspiring stories. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.